My dear people of Southern Cameroons, fellow brave warriors of our liberation movement, self-liberation greetings from me, Comrade John Akuro, this 14th day of June 2025. I want to extend special salutes to all the people of Ambazonia, wherever you may be it on the national territory that's on ground zero, be you in the diaspora, be you on ground one, ground two, be you even as an internally displaced person in some of the bushes or as a refugee in La République du Cameroon, you are welcome today to this show. I'm delighted to be back here. I said that I will be back here, and so I'm glad that I'm here. And so, my dear people, the discussion of today, the conversation we're going to be having today is too important, extremely important. So much so that it is necessary that as you are joining, when you are joining this show, make sure you share the link and please do well to share and share and share as much as you can because I need a lot of people to be part of this broadcast. I want everyone that is watching this broadcast share to at least 5, 10 people and need people to be aware of what is happening around us. We generally say that knowledge is power. And even in the Bible, it said that my people die because of lack of knowledge. And I know that in this liberation movement, what we need most is knowledge. Knowledge, especially of what this liberation movement is all about. Knowledge, especially of the kind of enemy we are up against. Knowledge, especially of the importance of remaining resilient, of the importance of continuing to put in our all to push this liberation movement forward, and especially knowledge of the need not to stand on the sidelines, not to continue to stand and claim that you are neutral when it comes to situations like these ones, where people are being killed, people are being disappeared, where our future is being stolen. There is no such thing as neutrality. You are either with us or you are with the enemy, therefore against us. This is what we need to bear in mind. Because one way or the other, you must be affected. If you are not affected today, you will be affected. So it is important for us to bear this in mind. So therefore, my people, as you are joining this show on this Saturday, make sure you share the link and share as much as you can. Let's get as many people as possible to be part of this very important broadcast. Let us begin with this. If someone shows you their true colors, don't try to repaint them. I guess you're understanding what I'm saying. If someone shows you their true colors, don't try to repaint them. This is very important. Very important because too often, too many of us have crashed in life because people definitely so clearly showed us their true colors, but we decided to be finding reasons not to see the colors as they are. We spend our time finding reason to see the colors differently, to repaint them the way we want to see them. And in the end, we have only our eyes to cry. This is similar to what I've said here before, and then I've repeated it over and over and over. That if someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. If someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Because the wicked ones always tell us that they are wicked. The evil ones always tell us that they are evil. Those who are going to betray us always tell us that they are traitors. Those who don't like us, they always tell us that they don't like us. But the one sin we commit is that we refuse to take them for their word. And in the end, we have only our eyes to cry. This is something that has bedeviled the lives of the people of the southern Cameroons. And it has made my people constantly to accept, to settle for less than they deserve. Which takes me to what I've repeated to on this platform over and over, that anytime you settle for less than you deserve, you are definitely going to end up with far less than you settled for. This is something we must bear in mind. Naively, we say, yeah, let us adopt this particular attitude now, and then in the future, we will adjust things. It has never worked. Naively, our people got up, carried their heads, preaching a return to federalism, and rushed to some nonsense called Grand National Monologue, or Bia called it Grand National Dialogue. Ended up crying there all over the place, begging to at least have something to show for their participation. And they handed them an empty shell called special status. They never understood what that special status was all about. Neither did the people granting, or hear it well, that so-called special status knew what was inside. That is why until today, everything they told you that they would do, they have never done. Every promise that they gave you, none has been fulfilled. And you find them crying all over the place, but not learning a lesson. Still fighting so hard to deceive you and I, to go in body, soul, and sinker to our destruction. That's what they continue to do. My dear people of Amazonia, freedom is never given. Freedom can never be handed to you over a platter of gold. Impossible. Anytime that you appear to feel that you are being handed freedom just like that, it is a poison chalice. Because nowhere in the world, there is no account in history where freedom was ever just handed to a people like that. People fight for and they seize freedom. That is why all the African countries that claimed that they were independent in 1960, especially from France, thought that they were independent because they simply gave it to them. But you and I until today know, therefore, that not a single one of them is independent, except those who are today truly fighting finally to achieve their independence. You have the case of Mali, you have the case of Burkina Faso, you have the case of Niger, and also, of course, we know about the case of Rwanda. My dear people of Amazonia, like I say, freedom is not free. It can never just be given like that. That is why you still see stories like this ones. World Bank tiring of Bamenda roads delayed again after 6 months. Of course, all those so-called projects that were brought, sometimes the World Bank mentioned here and there, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the African Development Bank, most of these institutions have been accomplices of the BIA system because of the clientelism that exists among them. And so therefore, they played the game and called it that these were projects that were coming in as a result of the Grand National Dialogue are meant to show that there are measures of appeasement. But they all had to be financed by Cameroon. And of course, Cameroon cannot finance it. They don't have the money. Today, they are giving you some monkey tales that, oh no, the World Bank had planned but for 15 meters wide, and then the so-called city mayor went and made arrangements for 30 meters wide, and now when the World Bank comes in to work, the money that is available is not enough for the 30 meters wide, and that's why there's confusion. But here, that Tokomen is now pouring gravel everywhere. These are stories. Just stories still meant to keep confusing you and I, to keep making you and I believe in a mirage. My dear people of Amazonia, brave warriors of the Southern Cameroon's liberation movement, we must not continue to accept to be fooled. Because, as I say, and I repeat, La République du Cameroon has not helped itself. They are not even independent. They cannot help you. They cannot help me. And this is very fundamental. I'm glad that even the gods of our land are beginning to tell these lost souls, calling themselves our elite. The Mbelamoki Charleses, A.K. Ngaringa, the Fotabe Tandos, the Fru Jonathan Mejingnis, the Callistus Fu Gentry, the Ngala Gerards, the Atanga Paul G, and the likes, and the Nalova Lyongas. They are all lost souls. That is why in Limbe today, in Victoria today, Nalova Lyonga went to hold a big rally, a massive rally, to spite the suffering masses of the southern Cameroons, to spit in our faces and say, I'm coming to show Paul Biya that I am the best, that in fact the people are crawling on their stomachs and ready and dying to vouch for you. And this is what she met in Limbe.
That's a picture of the grandstand area.
So that is Mbela Moki's voice you just heard there. The voice you just heard behind there, that's Mbela Moki's voice. You see what nature, you see what the gods have done to them. Watch it.
Test. Testing. Tweeters. Testing the mind.
As you can see, the rains bashed the whole place, washed up everything at that grandstand, carried water, even carried away a lot of the CPDM paraphernalia that they put there. Everything completely shattered. You see, they are all soaked, they are all confused, they are all lost. Oh yes, this is what happens. This is what happens when the people say no, and even nature begins to resonate by saying that actually this is not what this is supposed to be like. Things are supposed to be different. My people of Ambazonia, I say it to you and I repeat it. I say it verily, verily. If you are not supporting this liberation movement, if you are not standing strong with us, my people, if you are not putting in your all to ensure that we are able to overcome, trust me, what exactly is happening is you are standing on the wrong side of history. Because whether La République du Cameroun likes it or not, whether France and its allies whether they like it or not, we will overcome. I'm about to open a very, very important subject matter today on this discussion forum. On this platform today, it's about to get too serious. I want to take a quick break just to give you time to share the link again. I'll give you 30 seconds, you who are just joining in, or you who's already been watching, share the link again. Share and share and share. I don't want anybody to miss out on what is coming right ahead. Stay tuned. Thank you very much. That was some brief relaxation there. We took a very quick trip to Bui that is Bui County in Southland to have a little moment of respite. Now, fasten your seatbelt and let's go. And if you have not made a contribution to fuel this liberation movement in the past few weeks, in the past month, this is the day for you to do it. Don't let this day pass by. Rush quickly, Zelle, PayPal to amberrelief2018@gmail.com. Hurry to make a contribution. We need to keep those resistance alive. So here, let's go.
Mitterrand avait dit un anglo-saxon à Yaoundé jamais. Et donc, quand le chairman est donc en prison, la femme...
Did you hear that? Mitterrand avait dit un anglo-saxon à Yaoundé jamais. You should be wondering who this woman is that's talking here. Her name is Harriet Ekwe. If you have never known her, hurry quickly to Google. Type Henriette, not Harriet, Henriette. H-E-N-R-I-E-T-T-E, and then Ekwe is E-K-W-E. Harriet Ekwe. Harriet Ekwe is a political figure. She's been around a long time. You recall, it is this same Harriet Ekwe who said once that you go to a region, you go to a place, and then she was taking the example of the littoral region of La République du Cameroon. And she says the brigade commander is Bulu Ekambeti. You get frustrated with the brigade commander because he has not handled your matter well. You want to go one notch ahead. You go to the groupement. The groupement, the commander of the groupement is Bulu Ekambeti. You get frustrated with the commander of the groupement. You say you want to go a notch higher. You go and meet the legion commander. The legion commander is Bulu Ekambeti. You say, no, I can't take this anymore. Let me rather go to the legal department. You go to the legal department. The state council you meet is Bulu Ekambeti. You say, no, with this state council who is also Bulu Ekambeti, like all the other people, I can't do this. Let me leave the state council so that I can at least go and meet the procureur general. That's the one who is at the helm of the entire, and then you go to the procureur general, Bulu Ekambeti. You say, but wait a minute, what is going on here? You say, let me make a very last ditch trial. You want to meet the president of the appeals court of the region, of course, who is the boss of everybody, including the procureur general. And then you go and meet the president of the appeals court, Bulu Ekambeti. She said, where are we? This is the lady. This is the Harriet Ekwe. And what I'm saying is the reality. Go to every place in the southern Cameroons. That is what it is. From the divisional officer, through the senior divisional officer, all the colonial administrators, through whatever, they are all citizens of La République du Cameroon. 90% of them, Bulu Ekambeti. Go to Boyard legal department, check what I'm talking about. You will see it's the same thing. Now this lady says here, she's talking about the 1992 presidential election. And you heard her started by saying, Mitterrand was the president of France at the time. That il a dit, un anglophone à Yaoundé, that's à tout dit, jamais. That is an injunction from Paris. Now, some people are moving all over the place now, trying to create us some confusion. Some said they were at a conference in South Africa to meet with the federalists, with the unionists, and with the with the pro-independent movement, so that they should come up to wanting to see how they could get the best out of the elections, because they're expecting that, oh, they will do this, they could support Akeremun, our brother, and all of this. Listen, my people. France and its allies consider Cameroon a French-speaking country, and therefore under the sphere of influence of France. And because it is under the sphere of influence of France, because that's what international geopolitics is all about. The world is divided into spheres of influence amongst the 5 main powers that make up the permanent membership of the UN Security Council: France, Britain, United States of America, Russia, and China. And so it's a club. It's a club. And therefore, in this club, they know who is in charge where, and that person will be the one to say, give the final say on what happens there. This should not be strange to you. If you want to go by the tweets of the former US Undersecretary of State in charge of the Bureau of African Affairs, Tibor Nagy, he said, without mincing words, how the United States of America, under the first Trump administration, tried very hard to get the situation in the southern Cameroons discussed at the UN Security Council as a standalone item on the agenda. France pulled its weight and even threatened the veto. At the end of the day, it was under a hard struggle, after a hard struggle, that they finally succeeded in having the matter discussed around the area formula, which would end without a resolution. Because the discussions would be non-binding. So when you hear, therefore, Mitterrand say, un anglophone à Yaoundé est tout dit jamais, that should inform you that much as Cameroon falls under the French sphere of influence, the French consider that we only belong as an appendix, as second-rate citizens, as slaves, as a source of natural resources. That is all. Nothing short of that. This is what other countries, other entities that found themselves in the same situation like us across the world rejected. And they fought mighty powers and they were able to overcome. Let's listen to Ekwe again.
Femme qui était consul, elle envoie me chercher. Et elle me dit, tu sais, depuis la coordination, tu es un peu la confidente de toute l'opposition. Et surtout, tu es l'ami de John. Il appelait comme ça. Donc, Frances me dit que bon, on va te donner une voiture banalisée. Tu vas dire à John qu'on a négocié. Washington et Paris ont négocié pour qu'il soit vice-président. Nous avons besoin de lui. Mais les Français ne peuvent pas accepter qu'il remporte la victoire. Et puis tu lui dis...
Did you hear that? So Harry Kwe is saying here that in 1992, when Frundi was under house arrest in Tarikon in Bamenda, there were cables going on between Washington and Paris. There were serious discussions going on because the entire world, she says it, the entire world knew that Mr. John Frundi won the 1992 presidential election. It was not a secret. And so she says, Haredekwe, that because there was something called la coordination de l'opposition. That's a coordination of opposition parties. And so she was approached by Miss Frances Cook. Frances Cook was the U.S. ambassador to Cameroon in 1992. Frances Cook. And those of us, at that time, I was in high school, just got to Upper Sixth, and we had the opportunity to watch the proclamation of the results by Alexis Dipanda Mwele, who was then president of the Supreme Court. And I recall that while we were watching, he began by announcing that there were some irregularities with the vote, but his hands were tied. He made clear his hands were tied. And so he was going to present the results that were presented to him. And he read on, and read on, and read on, and they reversed the results. And then when he finished and said, est donc déclaré élu le candidat Paul Biya. Those of us who are watching live could see this lady, Frances D. Cook, the US ambassador at the time. She was wearing dark glasses just as she's wearing now. She shook her head in the hall. She shook her head like to say, this is unbelievable. But that is what exactly happened. But you see, Harriet Ekwe here is doing disclosure. This is now declassified information. He's doing disclosure. He's telling you that she was contacted by the then US ambassador, Frances Cook, who told her, we know that John Fundi won the election. Washington has been on phone with Paris, and Paris has sworn over their dead bodies. Would they accept for an Anglophone, as they call it, to be president in Cameroon? Although Fundi won, they will never ever accept for him to be president. So Frances Cook, therefore, was proposing to Harriet Ekwe that since you're close to all the opposition leaders and therefore close to Fundi, we will offer you a vehicle. When you say vehicle banalisé, that is a discrete vehicle, a special vehicle, which will be the banalisé that she's talking about here, which means an armored car, an armored vehicle to enable her to go through all those processes to meet Fundi and to tell Mr. Fundi that the United States of America had negotiated with Paris, with France, with the president of France, to accept for Fundi to become vice president. This is what it is. As far as France is concerned, we only deserve positions of assistant. That's why everywhere you are assistant. Mr. Full Jonathan Mejingni, if you are following me, that is why although you were Secretary General at the Ministry of Mines, and the person who is your boss today at the mining company was a director under you, once the company was created, he became Director General, and you, who was his boss yesterday, became Deputy Director General. Because that is how France wants it. That is how France views us. That is how France envisages that we exist in La République du Cameroun as subhumans, as assistant citizens, as second-class citizens. That is what it is. And so, despite all the pressure that Washington put on Paris, Paris said never, it will never happen. So you are talking elections today. For those of you, my brethren of the southern Cameroons, who are moving around talking election today, oh, let us go through the election, we can. I recall having a conversation with my brother and friend Kennedy Ejacha on Christiano's ABS. And he was like, oh no, yes, we need to go for the election. That is the route I want to take. Ben Zonga was the first to say, Fundi won the election. And he was one of those who said, we cannot take the country and throw it in water. Because letting a southern Cameroonian, letting an Amazonian be president in that entity called Republic of Cameroon will be like throwing the country in water. But what Abe Zonga never told you and I was that in effect, they were acting at the behest on the instructions of Paris. So there are never any elections in French-speaking Africa unless the people take to the streets in huge numbers and force their will. It happened in Côte d'Ivoire before with Laurent Gbagbo. We all saw how the French operated. We also saw how Nicolas Sarkozy personally led military operations to oust and capture Laurent Gbagbo and throw him in jail, take him before the International Criminal Court and install their puppet, Alassane Dramane Ouattara. And what did they tell you and I? They were fighting for democracy. That's the message they told you and I. The French were there to fight to install the truly elected leader of Côte d'Ivoire, whose victory was being usurped by Laurent Gbagbo. But the truth is out now. Laurent Gbagbo actually won those elections. But the French did not want Gbagbo because Gbagbo was not working for France. Because Gbagbo was debunking France in Côte d'Ivoire. Gbagbo was unraveling all of the French mysteries in Côte d'Ivoire. That is what happened. Because it will not be the same France that would say that is supposed to go to Africa to fight to promote democracy. That was now saying, no, Fundi won the election, yes, but he cannot be president because he is from Southern Cameroon. And yet some of you, some of us sit down to want to give the impression that you belong. No, we don't. We don't. That is why our people have made up their minds that they will all die right down to the last person to ensure we take back our country. We have a few misguided souls representing about 2% in our midst who are doing all they can to hold us back because they are collecting bread and sardine and some few coins from La République du Cameroun. And they feel that that is what is best for them. You are hearing it from Henriette Ekwe. Henriette Ekwe is a citizen of La République du Cameroun. She is the one talking, not me. Let's go back to her.
Que nous, les États-Unis, on pense qu'il vaut mieux qu'ils soient à côté du pouvoir pour lire, prendre connaissance des dossiers. Ah, avec Fundi, c'était la bagarre. Il me dit que mais pourquoi Française t'envoie? Elle a essayé de me convaincre, mais je ne pouvais pas accepter. Je ne pouvais pas accepter. Et donc, pour vous dire en un mot que on a gagné l'élection de 92. Les pays occidentaux savaient tous que Fundi avait gagné. Et ça, on saura après que Mitterrand avait dit un anglo-saxon à Yaoundé jamais. Et donc, quand le chairman est donc en prison.
So you see, Henriette Ekwe is clear. She's absolutely unmitigating in what she's saying. The Western world knew in 1992 that John Fundi lost the election. They knew, but François Mitterrand said never. And that is why Frances Cook, now imagine that, but this is going to be so flagrant. Okay, let Mr. Fundi at least be closer to that power that he won and they're taking it from him. That's why they said the US was negotiating that a post of vice president be created. Let Mr. Fundi be vice president, so that as vice president, he will at least have access to some key files. That was now the United States thinking. But what is going to happen here? Don't forget that it was during this time that Mr. Tibor Nagy was deputy ambassador of the United States of America to Cameroon. He saw for himself. He lived this experience. He visited the southern Cameroons a lot, and he could see the pain of the people. So for some of you who parrot your mouths and ask, oh, what is his interest? What is his this and that? No. He knows our situation firsthand, maybe even better than some of us who are involved in this liberation movement do. That is why he talks about our situation and talks with authority. That is why he teases France. That is why he says that if the reverse were true, that the people of La République du Cameroun were in the minority and not in power, and we, the people of the southern Cameroons, were in the majority and in power, France will long have thrown its entire weight to ensure the independence of French-speaking Cameroon. That's what it is. Evidence? France has fought and continues to fight tooth and nail for Quebec in Canada to be independent. Despite the fact that they are having all the goodies, the people themselves are the ones who have refused through 2 democratically organized referendums to opt out of Canada to be independent. The same French will say a referendum, free, fair, in the southern Cameroons, conducted not by La République du Cameroun, will be an abomination. That's what the French will tell you. It will be an abomination. That is why, from day one, I have said here, running to Switzerland, running to wherever that, oh, for this and that, is nonsense. Because we have to ensure that La République du Cameroon gets crippled to that point where they are the ones who begin to run helter-skelter and begging for peace, like it happened in the case between Indonesia and Timor-Leste and East Timor. That is when La République du Cameroon and France will get out of our territory. Don't be surprised that they're destroying everything as they're doing, that they're implementing a scorched-earth policy in our land. It is the policy of France that when I say that I will soon go and destroy everything that I've ever contributed in building in that land. They did that to Sékou Touré's Guinea. We see them doing all of those things they are doing on our land is because they know that they will go by hook or by crook. So therefore, my people of Ambazonia, my quest today is to prove to you and to me that La République du Cameroon is not independent. Therefore, we cannot continue to peg ourselves on a country which is only enjoying independence by proxy. La République du Cameroon is still a territory of the French Republic. Nothing will happen in La République du Cameroon without France giving its go-ahead. If you're doubting what I'm saying, sit back peacefully and make sure you don't go anywhere and just enjoy what is coming back right ahead. So, my people of Ambazonia, as we speak, the things that generally happen to show that a country is not independent, is still under full-blown colonialism. Because La République du Cameroon is not just under imperialism, it's under full-blown colonialism. Look at this. This gentleman, he is the Director General of the Gendarmerie in France. His name is Hubert Bonneau. Gendarmerie is a French force. And that force exists in all French former territories. Let me just use the word former. In all French territories in Africa, they have the Gendarmerie. And that force exists there generally commandeered still from France. The Gendarmerie force in all of the Francophone African countries is still under the direct command, or call it indirect command, of France. And so therefore, because the situation in La République du Cameroon in 2025 is becoming more and more dicey, more and more complicated, because the Armageddon that has to visit that country is brewing and brewing so hard. The French, of course, are no longer pretending. They are no longer hiding. They are operating now in plain sight. First, France appointed a 5-star military general as ambassador to Yaoundé. So, as far as France is concerned, the French military, the French troops that are on detachment in Yaoundé are on high alert at any time to make sure they will impose the will of Paris. And now, to make sure that there is total harmony across the board, that is why Mr. Hubert Bonneau, this gentleman, had to visit Cameroon. And when he visited Cameroon, this is him in white there at the Gendarmerie headquarters. You see how all those colonels Even the generals who are gendarmes are there standing there. Right in front of them there in suit is the Secretary of State in charge of the gendarmerie in La République du Cameroun, Galax et Toga. You see how he's standing? Arms folded. All of them, heads literally bowed. They can't afford to look at Hubert Bono in the eyes. No, they can't keep an eye contact with him. You can see subordinates bowing before their boss right inside Yaoundé. Jesus Christ of Nazareth. What an embarrassment. What a disgrace. And they tell you and I of the Southern Cameroons to belong to a country that cannot even run its own internal affairs, to be part of a country that is not only suffocating under the weight of some invisible imperialist forces, but is still today in the third millennium being openly controlled by another country. Look at this image. This image is worth 1 million words. That is Galaxy Toga bowing literally before the Director General of the Gendarmerie from France. Oh yes. Because La République du Cameroun is not independent, they cannot define their own development priorities. They cannot define their own education policies. They cannot define their own scientific research policy. They cannot define their own economic policies. They cannot take sovereign decisions over the handling of the natural resources in their own territory. Therefore, they will only be a drag on the people of the Southern Cameroons. Our forebears in 1961 were not opting to switch from British colonial influence to French colonial influence. No, that is not what they were bargaining for. They were not opting to switch from British colonialism, which was even indirect, to direct colonialism from France. That is not what they vouched for. If you are a Southern Cameroonian, you are an Ambazonian, you are watching me, and at the end of this show, you don't make a firm resolve to return to the front in this liberation movement with all your might, then you are a disgrace. You don't make the firm commitment to resume contributing feverishly to fuel this liberation movement so we can restore our dignity as a people and achieve true independence. The absolute independence that our people, 69% of them, said in a survey recommended by the late Christian Cardinal Toumi on Ground Zero, then you are an embarrassment. This is for a fact. Look at that picture. Shameful to say the least. Horrible. Painful to watch. And now, to understand this whole thing, because some of you are pegging on, oh, Maurice Kamto. If Maurice Kamto is there, it will up, it will down. I've told people before my opinion about Maurice Kamto, what I feel about Maurice Kamto, how I see his position on the Southern Cameroons, and he never mixed words. When he said the Cameroon affairs on histoire, he rejected even the thought of returning to the two-state federal system and outrightly even chased away Southern Cameroonians who went to see him in Canada to talk with him. He said because they were wearing Ambazonian colors, he could not receive them. Oh yes, that's absolute intolerance even. And he even said Mr. Paul Biya was not using adequate force the way he would have done if he were in charge. Don't mind that he pretended when he knew he was going to be thoroughly humiliated at the 2018 elections. and decided that he was not running, and claimed that he was not running because of the war in the southern Cameroons. Mr. Kamto is going for elections in 2025. Is it because the war in the southern Cameroons is over? Hell no. But again, even that same Kamto, hear what they are saying about him. Maurice Kamto, le premier choix de Paris. My people, just allow me to laugh. Maurice Kamto, le premier choix de Paris. So, according to La Nouvelle, Maurice Kamto is being favored of France. Oh yes. So, forget the crowds that you are seeing come out. Those that came out in Paris, La Place de l'Indépendance, those that came out on the national territory, and so on and so forth. This matter is being decided at the Élysée and the Quai d'Orsay in France, in Paris. That's where it is being decided. And you see the people, they say it themselves. So you, what is your part in all of this? Where do you belong in this? Tell me, where is your interest in all this? They know that this thing will be played in Paris. And therefore, the policy will remain the same. What do you say? Plus ça change, plus ça reste la même chose. You are doubting, listen to this. Paul Biya, Die Hard.
Oui les amis, bonjour, j'espère que vous allez bien. Pour ma part, ça va. Je viens de recevoir un extrait d'information donné par un de mes abonnés. C'est un extrait du journal Le Monde diplomatique, n'est-ce pas, qui a sorti une information sur laquelle la France est en train de faire la pression au pouvoir de Yaoundé pour qu'on impose Kamto comme candidat aux élections présidentielles. Parce que logique...
Now, what this gentleman is saying, he is an activist. He says he just received some information that someone on TikTok just shared some information on him coming from social media. Of course, that the information is contained in a French, that's not French language, which is being in a French newspaper. That's a French-based newspaper, Le Monde Diplomatique, in which they're saying that there is serious tension between Paris and Yaoundé because France is insisting on imposing on Yaoundé to ensure that Kamto will be candidate at the next presidential election. Reason? Because Paul Biya's government is doing everything to make sure Kamto's candidature will be rejected so that he will not be candidate. And now Le Monde Diplomatique, according to this gentleman, says that France, Paris, is piling pressure on Yaoundé to allow Maurice Kamto to be candidate. Again, I ask the question to my people of the southern Cameroons, where are you in all this? If France is piling this pressure, is it in your interest? Okay, let's follow the gentleman again.
Le MRC ne devait pas présenter des candidats, comme lui-même l'avait dit, lorsqu'il avait refusé de se présenter aux élections législatives et municipales après les élections présidentielles 2018. Il avait dit qu'il est conscient que en 2027, le MRC ne doit pas avoir de candidats. Donc logiquement, Kamto, à moins qu'il soit soutenu par un autre parti, ne devrait pas être candidat aux élections présidentielles. Mais pourquoi est-ce que la France vient se mêler? Voilà, je vais vous lire ce texte-là. Hein. C'est hier que j'ai reçu ça, hier dans la nuit. Voilà ça. Ne dites pas que j'invente, c'est ça là. Voilà. Bon, comment je m'excuse pas trop la manipulation des TikTok et tout ça, j'ai pas le temps d'ailleurs, moi j'ai d'autres choses à faire. Voilà, alors qu'est-ce que nous dit ce texte du journal Le Monde diplomatique? Il dit, les tensions entre Paris et Yaoundé atteignent un point critique, alors que la France intensifie sa pression sur le régime de Paul Biya. Selon les sources diplomatiques confidentielles, l'Élysée envisage des sanctions économiques sévères, voire un embargo si Maurice Kamto est exclu de la liste électorale et empêché de se présenter à l'élection présidentielle de 2025.
So you hear what he says. So he's saying that according to that newspaper, that French newspaper, the Paris-based Le Monde Diplomatique, that if that France is piling so much pressure on Yaoundé to ensure that Maurice Kamto will be candidate. And even at first, that Maurice Kamto, when he boycotted the 2018 council and the local elections, or rather parliamentary and council elections, he himself recognized that it meant that in 2025, his party, the CRM, will not be presenting a candidate. But he says in passing that, but right now, the embarrassment is that Paris is mounting pressure, and according to Le Monde Diplomatique, Paris is threatening Yaoundé that they will even impose economic sanctions and might even go further and pull the plug at several levels if Yaoundé does not allow Maurice Kamto to be candidate. My people, I'm joking in this just to continue to demonstrate to us all beyond reasonable doubt that La République du Cameroun is not independent. And therefore, what is happening is that for the people of the southern Cameroons, we are experiencing recolonization by proxy. Recolonization by proxy. We left being a UN trust territory that's under British colonialism, that we're getting independence and joining an independent country known as La République du Cameroun, whereas we're joining a country which itself is not independent. And that jeopardized our independence, our freedom, because we suddenly went now under something called colonialism by proxy. We're now being colonized by France through La République du Cameroun. It makes the situation even worse. And so for those who, whenever you say this, they say, oh no, that's why I'm taking the pains to let you watch this, listen to this. And as I said, if you have just joined this show, please share the link. Share and share and share and share. Make sure you share until your fingers pain, because I want our people to get this knowledge. It's important. Let's finish with
Pense à quel intérêt à ce que Kamto se présente? Ça me rappelle ici, c'est que le grand Sékou Touré, le nationaliste Sékou Touré, celui qui avait accepté qu'on enterre Félix Mounier dans son pays, quand il combattait la France-Afrique, il avait dit à son peuple, le jour que ces gens vont vous dire du bien de moi, sachez que je vous ai trahi. Quand vous voyez ces gens soutenir un candidat, je vous avais dit que le monsieur c'est le candidat de la France. C'est lui qui va venir enterrer les Camerounais. C'est lui qui va donner encore toute la France, tout le Cameroun à la France, comme il avait fait en signant les accords coloniaux. Les accords coloniaux vont être re-signés. Les Ntchelés seront acceptés au Cameroun. Écoutez bien ce que je vous dis là. Je vous dis bien, les Ntchelés là, les Lélés, ce qu'on appelle les aristocrates, seront acceptés au Cameroun. Ces gens en veulent au président Biya parce qu'il n'a pas accepté ça dans son pays. Oui,
So you see, their next natural conflict among themselves now is they are now fighting among themselves who is a patriot and who is not. And according to this gentleman, he says if France is wanting to impose Maurice Kamto as candidate, unlikely as president, it is because they have obtained from Maurice Kamto to protect French interests when he becomes president. And then he now goes that the rest is the internal politics and the internal nonsense, but at least it's still interesting. Because he says, if Maurice Kamto were to become president, he will sign back all the colonial agreements that, according to him, Paul Biya has ruptured. I don't know which, because France still has the right of first. France still decides whatever happens in Yaoundé. France still decides who will be appointed even to the office of director. France still decides which natural resources are its exclusive reserves. So I don't know what agreement he's talking about. And then he even claims that France does not want Paul Biya again because Paul Biya is now fighting against French interests in the Republic du Cameroon. How preposterous. But the logical thing that you gather here is that in La République du Cameroun, among the politicians of La République du Cameroun, the battle is to see who will show the most loyalty to France, not to the people. That is the pain in it. So when he says that Paul Biya and this one is the main patriot and all not, I enjoy receiving this picture. Look at this. You just look at that picture. That is Jacques Farmer Ndongo, Minister of State, Minister of Higher Education for over 20 years in La République du Cameroun. He is a professor. That's Jacques Famendongo, bowing dead to a French official. His head almost touching the ground. He can't even look at the person as he's receiving the handshake. He bows onto his looking on the ground. And you tell me, a proud Southern Cameroonian, that I should believe, sit down and imagine that we should be part of a country that has leaders as moronic as this one. To have Ngaput like this one as our leader. To have Ngaput like this one. To have nincompoops, people who are themselves already suffering from a complex. People who are themselves already suffering from what I call inferiority complex. He has lost his entire self-esteem. They don't have self-esteem. These are the people that the Mbela Moki Charles, the Nalova Lyongas, the Full Jonathan Martin, the Callistus Fulgenti, the Ngala Gerards, the young Philemons, and the Atangana Ponji, even in not that lost soul, say we should continue to belong to. Look at them. Look at him. What a disgrace. What a shame. And this is the third millennium. And then you look at this. You have a peace of mind. You sleep. You dream. You get up. You drink. You go and dance. So that you are a Southern Cameroonian. And you are not supporting our liberation movement. That will get out of this mental slavery. Yes, Bob Marley said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. This is what it is. My people of Ambazonia. Disgusting. And to imagine that Biya himself as president said that je suis le meilleur élève de François Mitterrand. Look at Paul Biya standing with François Mitterrand. See the way he's standing. At attention, at akimbo. And you can see Mitterrand's right hand, the way he's talking, dishing instructions. And Paul Biya standing there, avozord, receiving instructions. Hey, what a disgrace. What a shame. And this is the one that young activist was just telling us a while ago, that he's a patriot, that's fighting against French interests. A man who opened his mouth publicly and said that he was the best student of a French president, François Mitterrand. The same Paul Biya was in France after their useless so-called Grand National monologue or Grand National nonsense, what they call dialogue. And he visited France and said he went to rendre compte to Emmanuel Macron, to render accounts, to give a compte rendu to Emmanuel Macron about the new tactics they had put in place to subdue the people of the Southern Cameroons and keep them captive, and keep us captive as slaves for France. Paul Biya said it himself. And so therefore, my people, when I see some sit and say, okay, they are putting their trust in a Keremuna, because you see, he will become this. Don't forget that Mesanga Nyamding also said on national television that one of the things that could make a Keremuna even come across as a serious candidate is because he is Francophile. He is a serious lover of France, meaning he also has the potential to continue to foster French policies in Cameroon. Meaning, therefore, I know the number one priority, the top priority for France is ensuring that Southern Cameroon remains under La République du Cameroun to protect their economic interests. So, those of you dreaming behind my dear brother, the venerated legal luminary, a Keremuna, it's a waste of time. An absolute waste of time. France will even do everything for him to be candidate. I will do everything for Osi Joshua to be candidate. because they need to say that these people represented the Southern Cameroonians. But fortunately enough, the figures that are coming out of so-called registrations are telling enough of the determination of the people of the Southern Cameroons not to be part of this nonsense. And then, as we round up our show, the people of La République du Cameroun themselves have seen all of these maneuvers and they are now aware that at stake right now are French interests. And that the only way they truly get independence too for their own country, for La République du Cameroun, is rising. That's why they are warming up, as you can see here.
Nous sommes le 28 mai 2025. Nous sommes à Rabinga. Tout a été bloqué. Tout est bloqué. C'est comme ça. Le peuple de ce côté est debout. Le peuple du Grand Nord est debout. Nous avons nos revendications. Et ce n'est que le début avant le déclenchement final de ce qu'on appelle la révolution populaire du peuple camerounais dans l'ensemble. Et c'est comme ça, ça va se mettre en place. Une personne m'avait posé la question à Ahmed H, comment on va faire pour stopper tous les camions, que les magasins vont fermer, comment, voilà, vous savez, j'ai dit non, c'est pas un problème. Le jour où le peuple dans son ensemble, du nord au sud, de l'ouest à l'est, va descendre dans les rues, ça va se bloquer, les camions vont garer, personne ne passera. Et c'est la même chose aujourd'hui, ce qui se passe ici à Rabinga aujourd'hui là, c'est la même chose, mais ça ce n'est que le début du déclenchement du mot d'ordre collectif. Parce qu'il y aura un appel collectif et le peuple va se mettre dans les rues. Et on va bloquer tout comme on a bloqué aujourd'hui ici à Rabinga. Ça, n'est que le début. Et c'est comme ça.
So you see, they are warming up. For those of you who don't understand French, he is saying that locality where this thing is happening, where everything is grounded like that, is Rabinga. And I said this is a test. Test of exactly how things are going to happen on that day, at that time, when they will determine that all of them, all over their country, have to get into the streets to take back their country, to take back what belongs to them. I tell you verily, my people, it's not going to be easy. Now, also look at what happened in Duala. Although these ones are chanting Kamto, that's not my business. But watch.
Le peuple avance, les militaires reculent.
Let them go there, my people. You see, you could see the people marching forward, and the police was what were the policemen doing? They were backing off. As the people were marching towards the policemen, they were backing off. They were backing off. At the end of this demonstration, I could play it, it's even 8 minutes long. In Duala, not a single individual was arrested. No one is in detention. Not a single individual, I bet you. There was no gunshot. They didn't even shoot tear gas. They didn't even use water cannons to disperse them. No, nothing. I said there was not a gunshot in the air. They didn't even use anything, not even rubber bullets, nothing. But can you imagine that this was happening in the southern Cameroons? You would have heard about hundreds of deaths. You would have heard about a lot of people in hospital wards, wounded here and there. And you have been hearing about hundreds more captured and extradited to La République du Cameroon to be court-martialed. These demonstrations have no authorization. No, because the administrators banned any gathering, but the people came out. They came out in full force. Nothing happened to them because they are citizens. Because they are citizens. When Makenede, they tortured our people. Nobody said a thing because they were being tortured by citizens. They burnt down the houses of our people in Makenede and in the Kiminiki, seized their farms, brutalized them, wounded many. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been interrogated. No investigations have been opened because citizens were just having fun over subhumans. That is what it is. If this doesn't pain you, if this doesn't provoke you, if this doesn't shock you as a Southern Cameroonian, then you are an embarrassment, not only to yourself, not only to your family, but to posterity. My dear people of Amazonia, it is high time we wake up. Another message this translates to you, like the first video that I showed in Rabinga, and then this one in Duala, is that if the French are pressurizing Yaoundé to make sure Kamto will be candidate, it is not because they absolutely even think Kamto should become president, because they want to avoid the unthinkable, because they imagine that the country will start burning even before the elections if Kamto is not candidate. And France does not want that to happen, because France has one major fear. If you didn't know, hear from me today. France has one major fear, that if La République du Cameroon descends into total chaos, they are going to lose the Southern Cameroons. Because during that time, Southern Cameroonians will have an easy way out. That is why France is doing everything they can to see that they patch up any kind of thing in that country to avoid the worst. But unfortunately for them, their wishes will never become horses. It's going to be extremely complicated. I want to thank each and every one of you that found time to be part of this broadcast. If you haven't yet made a contribution, please go ahead, make a contribution. We need to continue to fuel this liberation movement. We need to continue to keep it alive. Thank you, everyone. I am delighted that you found time to be here. And most especially, do not forget to share the link if you have not already done so. Even if you have done so, share again. Thank you, everybody. And then until we meet again on this platform, have a nice one.